Hello guys. I am locking in for the first Talk About It Tuesday. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm also trying to go live on Instagram. This is the first time I've ever tried to do both at the same time. So y'all bear with me. I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Give a few minutes. This is going to be quick though. So I'm hoping people on Instagram can really hear me. Because I feel like I got my mic covered up. So I'm going to put that right there. So, hello. Shout out to everybody who's logging in with us for our first Talk About It Tuesdays. We are kicking off Mental Health Awareness Month, which is the month of May. And a Talk About It Tuesdays is really about just quick conversations that we're not able to really cover on the podcast because there's so many things that we can talk about. But these will be just quick conversations every Tuesday. Sometimes it'll be me, sometimes it'll be Lamar, and sometimes it will be both of us. But I want to say thank you for everyone who is supporting us and following the podcast, giving us feedback. I've reached out to some people. We're gearing up for season 2 of Living the Stress Life podcast. And I've sent out messages to some people I am looking forward to interviewing. We're getting that process rolling, and we're going to launch season 2 of the podcast the first week in June, the first Friday in June. So be on the lookout for that. So today we are going to be talking about a topic that I think is not discussed all the time, and it's, are men the forgotten grievers in miscarriage? Fortunately, me and Lamar have never experienced a miscarriage or what they call a spontaneous abortion. That's when the body naturally aborts a baby. But there are so many people in my life around me and that I deal with in a professional world that have experienced miscarriage. And so recently I kind of had, I was part of the labor and delivery process for a young lady who's in my program. And there were some things that didn't go as planned medically. And it really got me to thinking about, as I was processing how I felt in that moment when I was being asked some tough questions about, if something happened to the mother, who would be responsible for the baby, and is there a will, and all this stuff. I was processing that after the fact, and I was like, man, I can't imagine people who go through these things, losing a spouse. But it also led me to miscarriage, and it led me to, how do men experience grief, and how do they process losing a pregnancy? And so miscarriage is really a common thing that impacts a lot of people. About 20% of the population here experiences a miscarriage. So that's about 1 in 4 people experience miscarriage. 80% of miscarriages happen within the first trimester, which is, for those who don't know what the first trimester is, that's that 0 to 13 week phase. And that's of known pregnancies. Research shows that there are many people who would probably experience a miscarriage, but they experience before they even experience symptoms of pregnancy. And for women, I think it's very common for so many people to focus on the woman's experience because we experience that pain and that loss of life physically. Like we experience the symptoms that go along with a baby miscarrying. But a lot of men men don't experience that physical loss of a baby. They don't experience the miscarriage physically. And so I started really thinking about, like, how does that feel as a man? I've had, like I said, some people in my life personally who've experienced miscarriage. And I remember a very close friend of mine experiencing a miscarriage, and I was trying to figure out how to be there for her and support her emotionally. And I felt like it was good to give her distance and to give her space, because I didn't want to feel like, by constantly checking in or bringing up the topic, that I was causing her to be re-injured or re-traumatized, right? And it wasn't until I talked to a close family member who experienced miscarriage, and she was sharing with me how she felt like her friends weren't being supportive or they weren't checking in enough, that I, was able to have some honest dialogue with someone and just say, listen, for my friend, I didn't know how to be there. I didn't know how to support her. She had all these new milestones, new husband, starting a new life, having a baby with this husband, and I wanted to give them time to grieve. And I don't think I realized that maybe giving space felt like me not being a attentive friend or being a good friend. And so, I was saying to her, like, I understand that this experience is hard for you and you have so many feelings. Women tend to experience, according to research, women tend to experience grief more intensely. There's a lot of self-blaming. There's a lot of guilt and shame that go along with miscarriage. A lot of internalizing, like, what did I do wrong? Or maybe I shouldn't have done this. Or I had a couple of drinks before I found out I was pregnant. And they go through this process, right? But people who don't experience the loss, who are close to you emotionally, who are close to you because they love you, and they, especially those who are more intimate with you, such as a spouse or a boyfriend, I think that they experience maybe similar things to what I'm describing. Like, you just don't know how to be there. And so I have 3 questions that I kind of want to put out there and would love to hear from everybody who's tuning in to our podcast and tuning in to Talk About Tuesdays. Is, if you have experienced a miscarriage with your wife or in a serious relationship as a man, how is that impacting you? You know, what did you feel? What did you experience? Were you able to express the way you felt, or do you feel like your feelings were overlooked or minimized or dismissed anyway? Even if you were doing it, even if you were the person minimizing how you felt or saying, I don't want to put this off. In this article that the Time magazine did a few years ago, they talked about this. This was actually their topic. Are men the forgotten grievers? Or it just said men are the forgotten grievers. And one thing that one of the psychologists pointed out is that men aren't as oriented to express the loss of a miscarriage because they don't want to show hurt or sadness, because they don't want to bring their wife down. They sampled like 40 men, and what they found is 59% of them said that they had a deepened awareness of how fragile life was. 45% mourned the loss of their family's hopes and dreams. 50% reported that they didn't share their feelings with their partners at all. And 40% reported a strong sense of vulnerability, but they felt powerless to help their wife. And so, even though men don't experience the physical pain and the physical trauma of a pregnancy, because women experience bleeding and cramping, and then depending on how far along you are, it's considered a medical crisis, because a lot of times doctors have to go in and do what they call a D&C, where they clean out the tissue that's left in the womb from the baby, to make sure that no infection sets up, and to make sure that the uterus is left healthy, so that they are able to, so that the couple is able to reproduce, or the woman is able to possibly produce a baby or carry a baby in the future. And so because it can be so traumatic physically for men, for women, I imagine that as a man, you feel powerless. And so that's kind of our topic for Talk About It Tuesdays. When you don't express, we talked a lot in season 1. At the beginning of season 1, we talked about the differences in the way men and women express their feelings and the way that they experience trauma. And so we know that men are not as vocal as women. They tend to internalize, and they tend to isolate themselves. Like, they don't even share their feelings a lot of times with their friends. And so for so many men out there, I think that their mental health is compromised because they kind of go through trauma and go through pain on an island. And so I believe beside every good man is a good woman, regardless of what color you are. But I especially believe that in the Black community, behind every Black man, a good Black man, a strong Black man, is a strong Black woman. And so It's really sad to feel like you have a good man in your life, a great partner in your life, and they are experiencing something so deep and so hurtful, but they feel alone. So I want to talk about it. You guys hit me up. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys next week. And I'm looking for all your responses. I will do my best to get back to you. So for those of you who have comments, for those of you who experienced this, please share, share, share. I would love to hear feedback, and we'll get back with you so that we can keep the dialogue going. Enjoy the month of May. Promote mental health awareness, especially in the Black community. We don't talk enough about how our traumas and our pains impact our mental health. Till next time, live your best life, living through the stress life.